I had tinnitus for 10 years and I kind of grinned and bared it. I just kind of sucked it up and dealt with it. Didn't tell many people that I had it. I sort of had it under control. When it flared up in this year, I felt like I had lost control. And that's, I think, what led to that anxiety loop that I was in, where shortness of breath, couldn't sleep, tinnitus felt like it was just roaring in my ear. And so I didn't really feel like I had control. And I think one of the things that has absolutely been the most helpful, and you guys played a key role at Treble Health, was...
Scott, you're here to share a tinnitus story, so I'm going to first ask you a series of rapid-fire questions. How long did you have tinnitus before you got treatment?
Close to 10 years, over 10 years.
And how long were you in the tinnitus treatment for?
With Treble Health?
Yes.
Started in February and I think ended in August, so yeah, well, over 7 months.
What's the sound that you hear in your ears? Is it hissing, ringing, or something else?
Yeah, so I came back from an international travel 10 years ago with a very bad ear infection. My GP said it was one of the worst he'd ever seen in his patients. And once he finally cleared it up with antibiotics, I had this hiss in my right ear. And I just went back to him and I said, "What is this?" And he kind of shrugged and went, "Oh." And I mean, "What do you mean, oh?" He said, "Well, it could be tinnitus," because I had started to develop also hearing loss. And so what I've had for 10 years is I describe it as if you ever drive around the old days in a car with your parents or grandparents with a FM dial radio station. I'm on an FM station. It's just a little bit off. So it's just kind of a low hiss. Unfortunately, mine is 24/7, 365 in the right ear. It is not. It's been this way for 10 years, over 10 years. What got me concerned and what drove me ultimately to you guys was last fall, winter, had a series of stressful events that I don't need to go into here, but very stressful. And over the holidays, I noticed that it started to flicker in my other ear. And it kind of freaked me out. Because your mind starts to go, well, I've kind of dealt with it here for a long time. If this gets bad, I don't know how I'm going to be able to handle this. And so that got me into a anxiety loop over the holidays.
Yeah. And when you reached out to our team 6 months ago, your tinnitus on a 1 to 100 scale was a 51 out of 100, which is a significant problem. And the areas that were scored the highest were relaxation was really tough, the sense of intrusiveness of the sound, sense of control. Now, if we fast forward 6 months later, your overall score went from a 51 down to a 21 out of 100, so more than a 50% improvement. And the areas that we mentioned, the sense of intrusiveness went from a 53 to a 30, sense of control went from a 50 to a 20, relaxation went from a 67 to a 30. So really interesting data there. What was your experience on those particular issues with the control and the intrusiveness?
So the three, I think you just said the one that dropped the most may have been the control one. And what I can absolutely tell you is that I had tinnitus for 10 years and I kind of grinned and bared it. I just kind of sucked it up and dealt with it. Didn't tell many people that I had it. But I sort of had it under control. When it flared up in this year, I felt like I had lost control. And that's, I think, what led to that anxiety loop that I was in, where shortness of breath, couldn't sleep, tinnitus felt like it was just roaring in my ear. And so I didn't really feel like I had control. And I think one of the things that has absolutely been the most helpful, and you guys played a key role at Treble Health, was teaching me what I was reacting to and techniques to not overreact and to manage the stress level. And I've learned more about what actually is causing it. I know if I don't get a good night's sleep, I know that lack of sleep can make it worse. I know that stress can make it worse. So conversely, on the other side, I've got, and I made a list of them just so I wouldn't forget, I now have 8 or 10 tools in my toolkit that I can deploy, use. It doesn't matter wherever I am, Argentina on a trip with my family, or Europe, anywhere I am, I feel like I have tools to feel in control. And that's a huge part of it.
Hey, it's Dr. Ben and Dr. Priscilla. I'm here at our San Francisco Treble Health Tinnitus Treatment Clinic in the sound booth. I wanted everyone to know that if you are looking for a way to reduce your tinnitus, one of the best ways to do that is talking to a specialist on my team. We offer free consultations. So click the link below if you'd like to have a telehealth consultation from home, where you can speak to someone on my team who can guide you towards whatever solution is appropriate in your case. Click the link right below to schedule that consultation, and we'll see you there. Now back to the video. Well, we're going to get into those tools, and I'm really glad you wrote those down. I also want to now share on the screen the results of your hearing test. So you gave me consent to share the data here of, hey,
Yep,
the low pitches, the bass, the mid tones, the high pitches, the treble. How well were you hearing? So the hearing test came back from earlier this year, and it showed that there was a high pitch hearing loss in both ears. Based on what I'm seeing here on the graph, you can see that the lines are sloping from the left down to the right. Very common for our patients and people I work with who have bothersome tinnitus, where when they get a hearing test, it shows, hey, there is some high pitch loss. For you, was this just a tinnitus problem, or were you also noticing some decline in hearing clarity or conversations?
oh yeah, that happened over a decade ago. Like I was in the sales business, and we would have sales meetings with big groups of people in a ballroom, and unless I was, you were right in front of me, 2 3 feet in front of me, 4 feet in front of me, I had a very hard time with conversations where there was big, huge noise around. Restaurant, same thing. My wife would have to, stare me in the face and so that I could understand. So it was a big challenge. And I had just begun to, 10 years ago, I've had hearing aids. Absolutely. And so that helped with that.
Let's get into the tools that did help you here. So how many tools did you write down on that list, Scott?
I got 7 or 8. All right. I won't go deep on all of them, but I'll kind of go through them. And by the way, I think a caveat, and I feel I want to make sure that I represent myself properly in this, is like you and I talked about, if one of these ideas can help somebody else, that'd be awesome, right? Because I've met more people in the last 7 or 8 months as I've only opened up and said I need some help. People, I've met so many other people that have tinnitus in one form or another, that I discuss certain things that I've been doing, and they haven't even thought about them. So if it helps somebody else, that's awesome. And by the way, I also want to make my goal in all this, I think you asked me earlier, is I heard one tinnitus person declare that they had conquered it. I don't think you'll ever hear that. I don't think I'll ever say that. My goal in all this is to have the tinnitus peaceful coexistence. Peaceful coexistence, and somebody elegantly described it, instead of that loud, sound that I hear, to have it eventually over time just become a whisper in the background. And that's I'm in a much better place than I was when I was driven to you in January.
Well, I can sense from your story that you're here to help, and that's exactly what we're about as well. So let's go down these tools, and I might chime in here or there. What's number one?
Yeah. So the first, obviously, I would say that I had seen Treble Health. I had seen you, and I told you this in January. I'd first seen, people with tinnitus or any type of, go on the internet and try and find resources. And, I found your YouTube videos, and I don't know, that was probably 4 5 6 years ago. So I had heard about you guys, but you were recommended to me by another gentleman who had gone through the same anxiety loop that I had. And so you guys were incredibly helpful. I had a coach, Suzanne, for probably about 6 months. And she was incredibly helpful, coaching me, giving me tools, teaching me to understand what tinnitus is, the fight or flight, and what had caused my anxiety loop, and really making me feel like I had some control. In addition, with my hearing aids, very helpful, I'm able to also feed in sound therapy. So I create playlists when I'm outdoors playing golf or taking a walk. I put on a playlist, for lack of a better term, of, you can create whatever you want, but I have birds chirping, cicadas, and I've got a river flow. And those are sounds that are peaceful to me, And the goal is not to overpower the tinnitus, but to distract your brain with something that's very pleasant and soothing. So that's straight from you guys. I also have the Treble Health night mask that I put over that has little speakers in it. And I listen to a meditation to go to sleep because sleep is critical. And I go out typically in 2, 3 minutes. It's a 12-minute loop to go to sleep. Yep.
I have
That
one
thing
of
is
those
awesome.
sleep headbands you were talking about with some thin speakers there.
I wear it every night and I wake up in the morning, take it off. So that's been another great tool. The other thing I did, I quit drinking. I was never a heavy drinker, but I just stopped. New Year's Eve, I was in the ER. I think I've told you, asking for help in a bag and anxiety loop. So I just made the decision at that time that it was not that important to have a drink. I couldn't afford to have my wake up in the morning and have my head any distraction. I just could not. So that was a personal choice. I'm not advocating. It helped me. I've taken up meditation. I meditate every morning, probably in the hour and a half every morning. I've got a gentleman that I've been following his Zoom. So I went to a week meditation in Denver and did over 40 hours of meditation. I'd never done that in history of the world. And again, it's another tool that keeps me calm. And what's really interesting is, this is a side note, in my I have dreams every night. All of my dreams over the last 10 or 11 years since I've had tinnitus, the concept of tinnitus does not exist in my dreams, which is kind of fascinating to think about that. It's never shown up. So anyways, I exercise quite a bit, and then I try and keep stress low. I'm religious about when I go to sleep, try to get maximized 7 or 8 hours of sleep. And then I also use the linear headsets, which I think is, as many people know, or maybe some don't, but it's an FDA approved headset, and listen to some playlists of sounds. So I do the linear, probably half an hour each day. So those, I think, Ben, that's my list.
Well, and what's your advice for someone who has not tried most of that? Where would you recommend someone get started with some quick wins, things they can do this week perhaps?
Absolutely. Figure out what are the things, kind of chronicle, what are the things that can trigger stress? How just just be self-aware. How stressful are you? What kind of things trigger you? And so, keeping stress under control absolutely is critical. And then sleep. Just make sure you get a good night's sleep. And, if you think about it, part of my decision also, with giving up alcohol or certainly cutting back is, I needed to make sure I got a great night's sleep. And, there's probably some studies there that say, alcohol can disrupt sleep patterns. So, but I'll leave that to somebody else. And then to talk to you guys. I mean, it's funny. And we said, "What's the one thing? What's one thing that you've done that made took you from high anxiety down to pretty calm most days?" And I would say it's not one thing, Ben. It's really not. I mean, I just went over those intentionally because I feel those are tools, and when you have tools, you feel like you're in control. When you don't have tools and you leads to feel like you don't have, that's a lonely place to be. And as you know, being with tinnitus people, it can be a pretty lonely thing in your head, because you look at me and you look at a person with tinnitus, you're like, you look totally fine, what's wrong? But they don't hear what's going on in there. So I just gave you 7 or 8, try one or two of them. And then I guess the other thing, where I was at in the ER, and then on New Year's Eve, that's how I started 2025, asking for help. And then I think I told you this when we talked in January, and then 6 days later, 7 days later, on the 7th of January, we lost our house in the fires, in the Palisades fires in LA. And so, man, talk about getting stuff thrown at you. And I think I would just leave somebody with, how are you ready to really get serious about trying to bring it under control? And I remember that somebody in the ER, one of the doctors said to me, and he goes, he told me, he said, "What's going on, bud?" And I described it. He just looked at me, he goes, "Hold on." He goes, "Two things. I want you to know, I get you. I have tinnitus." And I just, I just want to hug the guy. You just wanted to be understood, and he understood what I was going through. And then number two, he said, absolutely make sure, you got to promise me that you don't extrapolate the way that you feel right now in this anxiety loop you're in. Do not extrapolate that out that's the way you're going to be in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. We can help you. There are tools and resources to help you get better. So I guess, what stage are you at with tinnitus? If it's not that bothersome, God bless. That's great. Maybe you pick an idea here. That's awesome. If it's getting where it's intrusive in your life, stress is high, there are people, talk to you guys, talk to some others.
Scott, would you be able to expand on what led to going to the ER and why did you go?
Yeah, so I think I said in the fall there was a series of stressful events, daughter getting married, mother going into a nursing home, making me feel guilty about it, jury duty, getting dropped from my fire insurance. I had a series of stressful things. And like I said, stress for me is one of the contributors to making my tinnitus worse. And I had noticed that it started crackling in the other ear. And that's sort of what, well, technical term, but that's sort of what freaked me out. It really scared me because I extrapolated it getting unbearable. And so over the holidays, I was up in a mountain town and at elevation. I also have high blood pressure, hypertension. I'd forgotten one of my blood pressure medicines. So I had I noticed that my blood pressure was running really high. I was running at 150 over 100, shortness of breath, didn't have an appetite. And what was happening was I was in one of your classic that Suzanne described to me. It's that classic fight or flight. Your body is reacting to something that it doesn't understand, it can't control, and the body physically reacts to that. And I was in an anxiety loop for over 7 days. And I just told my wife, I said, I got to go back to LA and see if I get better down sea level. It didn't get better. And I was with some friends on New Year's Eve playing golf. One of my buddies looked at me and goes, "You don't look good. Are you okay?" I said, "I don't feel great." I told him what was going on. We had lunch, and after lunch, he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I think I'm going to the ER." I said, "Get in the car." And he took me over there, and they gave me, some anxiety stuff to break the loop. And that was the turning point. And then, like I said, 7 days later, lost my house in the fire. So yeah, it was a pretty rough January.
It's been a transformational year for you. And for those who are listening who say, wow, I resonate with part of Scott's story, the stress or the trying so many things, having it for many years, still struggling, also having hearing loss. One of the reasons we make these videos is to make people feel understood and heard. Tinnitus is invisible. It's a serious problem. We don't really talk about things that are invisible so much. I want to pass it to you to share, working with Dr. Suzanne. Most of the patients that I speak to who do that, they tend to realize, oh, this tinnitus treatment, it's not just hearing aids, it's not just sound therapy, that there is this sort of cognitive component, changing the brain's reaction. I'd like for you to explain what that felt like in a way. We heard about the sense of control, etc. But what was that for someone who doesn't even know what that means? What exactly did you do? What tools and techniques did you practice that actually worked?
I still remember the crackling that led to that anxiety loop. I still get it occasionally. I had it a little bit this morning. And instead of reacting and giving that oxygen and freaking out at it, I observed it. And I went, oh, this is come and gone. I'm not going to give it any attention. And so reframing your reactions to things is critically important. Understanding the things that can trigger it. I remember one of our calls was right after, I think, daylight savings in the spring. And, I told her I had a really tough night's sleep and, with the time change and, that was flaring up. And she goes, well, that's because you just shifted all of your routines by an hour. And I hadn't even thought about that way. So yeah, and I described when you and I first jumped on the call, I used to describe my tinnitus, I'd say it was annoying, irritating. Now I just say, like, if I have a day where it's a little more elevated, because maybe I didn't get a great night's sleep, I just say it's more noticeable. So I changed the terminology that I use. I try not to give it too much attention, too much oxygen, because your brain can snowball one way or the other. You can feed on a negative loop, which is where I was, or you can just say, okay, and then carry on. And this is interesting, and I don't know, maybe this is a bridge too far for some people, but this is back to reframing. For 10 years, I always kind of viewed the tinnitus that I'd gotten kind of as a cross to bear, right? Why did this happen to me? Woe is me. And ever since January, Ben, in reframing what happened to me and the things that I just described, getting great night's sleep, that's awesome. Reducing stress, that's awesome. My blood pressure levels are down. I think this morning was at 107 over 71. I've probably gone too far. I'm probably too chill. Meditating. God, that's not a bad thing, right? And some of the people that I've met through that, you know, not drinking that at all. So I've kind of viewed it, and the people that I've met, like you, like others, I've met some wonderful human beings that if I had not reached that level and then opened up and said, I need help, the people that I've met have been wonderful. And I reframe the tinnitus as it got my attention on certain things and as almost as a gift. That might seem really strange to somebody listening to this, but a lot of this is some of the tools that Suzanne talked to me and others and in meditation, which is how you think about things, the energy that you project on certain things, you'll attract that energy back. So if you change it, if you want to change it, change the energy and you'll change the outlook on things. So I viewed it as a gift because it's given me much in return on this journey, and I'm on a journey. It isn't over, you know, but I'm in a much, much, much better place than where I was. Even I would even say before the crisis, Ben, before the anxiety. I know so much more about what triggers it, what much makes it worse, what tools are out there now than I did during the 10 years that I had it in the right ear, that I just kind of grinned and bared. I sucked it up. And so that makes you feel great.
Scott, I love that. I love that. So many insights here that people can learn from. And I hear a lot that these success stories give people listening on their couch or on their drive to work. It gives them hope and it gives them some energy to keep going when things are hard, some extra perseverance.
The last thing that I would emphasize, the gift thing, maybe that's a bridge too far for some people to reframe their tinnitus as a gift yet. But I made that decision when I told my buddy, I said, I think I am going to the ER. That was a pivot point. That was an inflection point, because what that was basically saying is I had lived with it in my head by myself. I was saying, opening up and surrendering and saying, please, people, please help me. There's got to be some people that can help me. And so I would just say, if anybody listening out there, if you're at that point and it's in your head all the time and, nobody can, and you need, open up, ask for help, tell people that you need some help. And I think you'll be blown away at the people that are willing to help you and the love and support that will come your way. And then the last thing that I always tell people when I bump into somebody and they say, oh yeah, I've got some tinnitus just like you, I give them a hug. You find out somebody, give them a hug, because it's in their head and it just feels, you just want to feel like you're not alone in this. So that's what I would share.
Guys, this is Scott sharing his tinnitus story. My name is Dr. Ben Thompson, audiologist with Treble Health. If you need help, we are here, as well as many others like Scott. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you on another Treble Health video.